All right, so today we're going deep on the Black Mafia family. And we've got a really interesting mix of sources today. Excerpts from books, court documents, even some YouTube video transcripts. So we're going to get like a multi-dimensional view of this whole story.
It's a captivating story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just about the names and dates, right?
Right.
It's about, peeling back the layers, understanding, what were the motivations, what were the strategies, and then ultimately, what were the consequences of all that?
Okay. The Black Mafia family, BMF. Where did this whole thing even start?
Well, at the heart of it, you've got two brothers, right, from Detroit.
Right.
Demetrius Big Meech Flannery and Terry Southwesty Flannery.
Okay.
And their story kind of starts like so many others, humble beginnings, big dreams. But the path that they took to achieve those dreams took a very dark turn.
They weren't exactly running lemonade stands, right?
Yeah. No. No lemonade stands here. They built a cocaine empire that stretched its tentacles from Detroit all the way across the nation. And I think what's really interesting is how they operated. It wasn't just like a loose collection of, street dealers, right?
Right.
It was a hierarchical structure. You had enforcers, you had distributors, you had money launderers, a complex machine really designed to move product and generate massive profits.
And Big Meech, from what I've read, was not exactly a modest guy.
No, he was not known for his modesty. Meech loved the high life,
Okay.
designer clothes, the luxury cars, those extravagant parties. And it wasn't just for show, though. I mean, that flamboyant lifestyle was also a calculated move.
That's interesting.
It attracted a loyal following, almost like a cult of personality, you know what I mean?
I see.
And created this whole network of individuals who were willing to, do anything for their charismatic leader.
So the parties, the bling, it wasn't just ego.
No, not at all. It was a strategy, to solidify power and loyalty within the organization.
Interesting.
And even when he was incarcerated, Meech, he maintained this lavish lifestyle, hosting, celebrity guests in prison. It really speaks volumes about the influence that he wielded, both inside and outside the prison walls.
So the other brother, Terry, Southwest T, he had a little bit of a different personality, right?
Yeah. While Meech was, the charismatic showman, Terry was definitely the more cautious one, much more focused on like the business side of things, And he saw the risks associated with Meech's flamboyance, the unwanted attention that it brought, especially from law enforcement.
Right.
And so this difference in approach, this clash of personalities really created a tension that would eventually contribute to the downfall of BMF.
Right. It's like the classic story of the two brothers, right?
Exactly.
One drawn in the spotlight, the other one working kind of behind the scenes.
Right. And that tension was only made worse by the inherent violence, that surrounded this whole business.
Right.
And there's one incident that stands out, kind of a turning point for BMF. It was back in 2003, an altercation at Club Chaos in Atlanta.
Club Chaos, let's talk about that. What happened?
So it started as like a seemingly minor dispute, between Big Meech and this guy, Anthony Wolf Jones. But things escalated pretty quickly and, shots were fired in the club's parking lot and it left two people dead.
I mean, it seems like violence was almost inevitable in this world that BMF operated in.
Yeah. I mean, this incident wasn't just like a random act of violence. It really exposed the volatile nature of the organization,
right.
The hair trigger tempers, the willingness to resort to lethal force.
Yeah.
And it also put BMF squarely in the crosshairs of law enforcement,
right.
shining a spotlight on their activities.
And I think this incident also further strained the relationship between the two brothers.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Terry saw this as a direct consequence of Meech's reckless behavior.
Right.
Proof that his brother's lifestyle was, putting the whole operation at risk. And the seeds of distrust and resentment, they were sown even deeper.
So we've got this mix of charisma, ambition, but also, a simmering undercurrent of violence.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the public perception of BMF at this time? Did people did they see them for what they really were?
Well, that's where BMF's carefully crafted image comes in.
Okay.
They used their wealth to infiltrate legitimate businesses,
yeah,
including the music industry. Remember BMF Entertainment?
Yeah, I read about that. They had ties to some pretty big names in hip-hop, right?
Yeah, they did. And it wasn't just about the music. It was a sophisticated money laundering scheme, really,
I see.
By creating this seemingly legitimate business, they could mix their ill-gotten gains with clean money,
Right.
making it harder for law enforcement to track. It was a clever facade, you know. It allowed them to maintain a veneer of respectability while continuing their illegal activities.
A fake record label as a front for money laundering. It's a tale as old as time. But, obviously BMF's story doesn't have a happy ending. So what were some of the cracks that started to appear in their seemingly impenetrable empire?
Well, there's another incident that I think sheds some light on BMF's internal dynamics, and the dangers that were always lurking beneath the surface. And that's the murder of Pookie Lock back in 2005.
Pookie Lock. I remember reading about this, and this involved a pretty well-known rapper too, right?
It did. Pookie Lock was a rapper who was associated with BMF, and he was found dead, riddled with bullets.
Wow.
And rapper Gucci Mane was even arrested for the murder, though he claimed self-defense and was later acquitted.
Wait, Gucci Mane was involved with BMF, so this case must have generated a lot of media attention.
It did, but what's really significant about this case, I think, is what it reveals about BMF's internal code of silence. Oh, interesting.
Even though someone within their circle was murdered, there was a real reluctance to cooperate with the investigation. It speaks volumes about the fear and loyalty that kept BMF's members in line, even when they were facing, serious criminal charges.
So this code of silence, it was kind of a strength and a weakness for BMF.
Exactly. Yeah, it protected them from outside scrutiny. But it also, it fostered an environment where violence could flourish, unchecked.
Right.
And so while BMF was projecting this image of, success and glamour, law enforcement agencies were slowly piecing together the puzzle, gathering evidence that would eventually bring the whole operation crashing down.
And that's where the story takes a turn. The party's about to end for the Black Mafia family. But we'll get into their downfall in the next part.
So before we got into all this, we were talking about law enforcement, starting to close in on BMF. And there was a key figure in all this, a detective named Burns. He was absolutely relentless in pursuing this organization. What was it about BMF that made Burns so determined to bring them down?
I think Burns was one of the few who really saw BMF for what it was, a sophisticated criminal enterprise, not just a bunch of flashy partygoers. He recognized the danger that they posed to the community, and he dedicated himself to dismantling their network.
How did he go about cracking this case? Because they were pretty good at keeping things under wraps, right?
Yeah. Burns used a multi-pronged approach. First, he cultivated confidential informants within BMF, individuals who, for various reasons, were willing to provide information in exchange for leniency.
Right.
He also tapped into wiretaps, meticulously listening in on conversations, piecing together this complex web of drug deals, money laundering, even threats of violence.
So painstaking work, building a case like this against an organization as powerful as BMF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But Burns had a real breakthrough when he got William Doc Marshall to flip.
Doc Marshall.
Yeah, BMF's chief financial officer.
Yeah.
Doc had, intimate knowledge of their finances, the intricate details of their, money laundering operation through BMF Entertainment.
BMF Entertainment, right, the fake record label. It's just amazing to me how they used this seemingly legitimate thing to mask their illegal activities.
So what kind of information did Doc provide?
Oh, Doc's testimony was invaluable.
Yeah.
He explained how they used the record label to, mix drug money with legitimate funds, making it, virtually untraceable. He also provided details about the key players, their roles within the organization and the scope of, their drug trafficking network.
So he was kind of the missing piece of the puzzle, the one who could connect all the dots for investigators. He was a critical asset. Yeah, absolutely. And in addition to, to informants like Doc, law enforcement was also employing some pretty cutting edge technology at the time. They used cell tower mapping to track the movements of key players, building a comprehensive picture of BMF's operations.
So you've got the inside information from Doc, the technological advancements, and this dedicated detective leading the charge. So how do they start dismantling this empire?
Well, one of the first major cracks in BMF's armor came with the takedown of Jerry J. Rock Davis's operation.
Okay.
in Los Angeles.
Okay.
J-Rock, he ran a drug crew, very closely aligned with BMF. He was considered untouchable, a real force in the underworld.
Well, I'm guessing untouchable didn't last very long. What happened to J-Rock?
Well, despite his reputation, J-Rock couldn't escape the long arm of the law.
Right.
He was arrested, along with key associates like Scott King and Tremaine Kiki Graham.
Kiki Graham.
Yeah, and this really sent shockwaves through BMF. I mean, if someone like J-Rock could fall, anyone could.
A sign that the party was coming to an end. Did J-Rock's arrest lead to more dominoes falling within BMF?
It did, and Kiki Graham's story in particular reveals this really shocking twist, a connection that reached the highest levels of Atlanta's political scene.
Oh, this is where things get interesting.
Yeah.
What was Kiki's connection to the political world?
Turns out that Kiki was married to the daughter of Atlanta's mayor at the time.
Wow.
Shirley Franklin.
That's a bombshell.
Yeah. And his connection to the mayor's family wasn't just, a personal matter. It seems he was using it to further his criminal activities.
So was the mayor aware of any of this?
That's still unclear. But what we do know is that Kiki and Scott King, his associate from J-Rock's crew, they established this fake business called 404 Motorsports, supposedly dealing in luxury vehicles. But it was another front, for money laundering, another way to legitimize their drug profits.
So another fake business, just like the record label.
Exactly.
But this time with potential ties to the mayor's family. So it seems like their web of deceit was starting to unravel. What happened next?
Well, 404 Motorsports wasn't exactly a thriving business. They needed a cash infusion, and that's when Kiki turned to his father-in-law, David Franklin, the mayor's husband.
Now the mayor's husband is getting involved. This is getting deeper by the minute.
Yeah, David Franklin, he ran a concessions business at Hartsfield International Airport.
Right.
He had these lucrative contracts, and it appears that he funneled money to 404 Motorsports to keep it afloat. Yeah. Whether he was fully aware of the nature of the business, that's still a matter of speculation.
So Kiki was allegedly leveraging his family ties to prop up his illegal operation. Did this connection to the mayor's family shield him from prosecution?
Not quite. Remember, the feds were already onto Kiki and Scott through their investigation into J-Rock.
Right.
And there was a key figure that emerged in all of this, Ulysses Hackett.
Okay.
Scott King's driver.
Hackett, he's the one who turned informant, right?
Yeah, he did. Hack provided investigators with crucial information about Kiki's involvement in the drug operation and his connection to the mayor's family. His testimony was invaluable in exposing the depth of corruption and the reach of BMS influence.
But tragically, Hack's decision to cooperate came at a very steep price.
It did, yeah. Hack and his girlfriend, Misty Carter,
right? They
were found dead in their apartment, shot execution style.
Wow.
It was a brutal reminder of the deadly consequences of betraying BMF.
So their deaths must have sent shockwaves through the investigation. Did investigators ever determine who was responsible for the murders?
Yes, suspicion immediately fell on Kiki. It seemed likely that he had ordered the hit to silence Hack,
right?
Who was cooperating with authorities. And later, Scott King, Kiki's partner in 404 Motorsports, he also became an informant and provided even more evidence.
What kind of evidence did Scott King provide?
Scott claimed that Kiki had confessed to him.
Oh, wow.
About the murders. He said that Kiki and J-Rock, they went to T's house and took care of things. And investigators believe that T that referred to Terry Flannery, and that this was a reference to the murders of Hack and Misty.
So you've got a double homicide, a confession from a former partner, and a potential link to one of BMF's most powerful figures. Yeah. So what happened to Kiki? Was he ever brought to justice for these crimes?
Well, that's where the story takes this unexpected turn. Kiki was arrested, but he was later released on bond, and then he vanished.
He skipped bail.
Yeah.
With all that evidence stacked against him.
He did. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and the bail bonds company, they even offered a reward for information leading to his capture. But despite all their efforts, Kiki was never found. To this day, his whereabouts are unknown.
It's a chilling reminder that even with mountains of evidence and a nationwide manhunt, some individuals, they managed to evade justice. And it's a tragic end to a story that was already, filled with violence and betrayal. Kiki's actions ultimately cost him his freedom and sadly the lives of two innocent people.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of of the dark underbelly of power and influence. But what about the Flannery brothers, the architects of this vast criminal enterprise? We know the authorities were closing in, but what was their fate?
So we're talking about the Flannery brothers, right? They're facing the music. All this evidence is piling up. What happens to Big Meech and Southwest T?
Well, in 2005, both brothers were arrested. It was, pretty dramatic end to their reign. Terry was apprehended in Los Angeles, while Meech was found in this luxurious hideout in Texas. The high life was over for the Black Mafia family.
Did they fight the charges, or did they try to cut a deal with the government?
And that's kind of where their paths diverge a little bit. Terry, always the more pragmatic one, he opted for a plea deal, admitted his guilt on drug trafficking charges, and received a 30-year prison sentence.
30 years. That's a significant amount of time. What about Big Meech? Did he follow his brother's lead?
Meech, true to his personality, he wanted to fight.
Right.
He believed that he could win in court, and he even tried to convince Terry to do the same. It was a gamble that didn't pay off. Meech was found guilty and also sentenced to 30 years.
So in the end, both brothers, they received the same sentence despite taking these very different approaches. It's kind of it's ironic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really highlights how, the justice system, it often catches up, regardless of your personality or your attempts to manipulate the situation. And the allure of wealth and power obtained through illegal means often leads to a similar outcome.
It's a reminder that actions have consequences, but even though they receive the same sentence, their time in prison unfolded quite differently, right?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about their experiences behind bars?
That's where their contrasting personalities, really come into focus. Meech, he kind of embraced his notoriety, becoming this somewhat of a legend within the prison system. Mm-hmm. He was known for acts of generosity, mm-hmm. Helping fellow inmates and even funding educational programs. Some people even viewed him as like this Robin Hood figure, a criminal with a heart.
So Meech still couldn't escape the spotlight, even in prison.
Yeah, seems like it.
What about Terry? How did he handle incarceration?
Terry's experience, it was much more marked by introspection and a desire for change. Really,
right?
He dedicated himself to rehabilitation. Even wrote a self-help book. And he seemed to genuinely regret his past and was focused on making amends. He even distanced himself from Meech, recognizing the negative influence that his brothers, continued glorification of their criminal enterprise.
Ever right. Two brothers, two drastically different responses to their shared fate. Makes you wonder, if their paths would have been different if they had made different choices along the way.
It does, yeah. I mean, their stories are a testament to the power of individual choices, even within a system that often feels inescapable.
The story of BMF is more than just the Flannery brothers, though, right? I mean, it impacted so many lives, often tragically. And one event that really stands out is the shooting at the Velvet Room in Atlanta.
Yeah, the Velvet Room incident is it's a heartbreaking example of the ripple effect of BMF's violence. This young man, Prince Drummond, he was caught in the crossfire of this dispute involving BMF members, and his life was cut short, leaving this void in the lives of those who loved him.
It's a reminder of the human cost of organized crime. What happened in the aftermath of the shooting?
The investigation into Prince's death was hampered by by that code of silence that shrouded BMF. Witnesses were afraid to come forward, fearing retaliation. But Prince's mother, Debbie Morgan, she refused to let her son's death be, swept under the rug.
She was determined to find justice for her son. What did she do?
Debbie Morgan became a, tireless advocate for her son. She organized rallies, she spoke to the media. She even wrote a letter to the mayor pleading for help. Her unwavering determination, it eventually led to a breakthrough in the case. Detective Cooper, who was investigating the case, he managed to secure the cooperation of a key witness, Doc Marshall. Remember him?
Doc Marshall, right?
Yeah.
BMS financial officer. He turned informant and provided crucial evidence against BMF.
Exactly. Yeah, his testimony, along with Debbie Morgan's persistence, it helped piece together the events of that night and ultimately led to the identification of the shooter.
So it was a small victory for justice in a story that's dominated by tragedy. Yeah. It highlights the courage it takes to stand up to these organizations like BMF and the importance of holding those responsible accountable for their actions. So what are the key takeaways from our deep dive into the Black Mafia family? What can we learn from their rise and fall?
I think BMF's story is a cautionary tale,
Yeah.
about the allure of the underworld, the promise of wealth and power. It often masks this dangerous reality. Their empire was built on, illegal activities, violence, and exploitation, ultimately leading to devastating consequences for those involved and the community as a whole.
We've seen how ambition unchecked can lead down a very dangerous path. But we've also seen these glimpses of hope. Individuals like Debbie Morgan and Doc Marshall who stood up for what was right, demanding justice and accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the BMF saga it's this complex tapestry of choices, consequences, and the enduring struggle between right and wrong. It challenges us to think critically about the systems that perpetuate these cycles and the individual choices we make within them.
It's a powerful reminder that the pursuit of justice is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires courage, persistence, and a belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the truth can prevail. And if you found yourself drawn into this captivating saga of the Black Mafia family, their rise and fall, the allure and the danger, then there's a whole world of stories waiting for you right here on the All Sorts podcast. Stories of ambition and intrigue and the complexities of human nature. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel and follow us on X, Instagram, and Threads. Join our community of curious minds as we continue to explore all sorts of fascinating tales, diving deep into the stories that shape our world. We'll see you on our next deep dive.